Okay, so what's on the quiz that we have tomorrow? This is the review for that quiz. Describing graphs in terms of whether they're increasing or decreasing. So here's a little graph. Is this one increasing or decreasing? Increasing. But then the hard part is it increasing at an increasing rate or increasing at a decreasing rate? Decreasing, because it starts out fast. If you think of its slope at the beginning here, it's pretty steep. And then at the end, it's not very steep, and that means slower. So this starts out fast and goes slower and slower, so that's increasing at a decreasing rate. Okay, next thing. If I give you a graph that's got a lot of stuff happening in the real world, like let's say this is a bike trip, and he starts off doing this, and then he does this, and then he does that. You'd have to be able to describe those three sections of the graph. Okay, take a look at the little picture I just made. This first part, is that doing what? You can use abbreviations. Write it down. So like if you think it's increasing at a decreasing, you say INC DEC. And then the next part of the graph, it's doing something that you should know. It's flat. And then the third part of the graph, that's supposed to be a straight line, a steady, whatever. So you figure out how you describe those three areas of the graph. Now, if this was a bike trip, what would that flat part mean? He's distance away from home. What would his distance be doing? Yeah, his distance is not changing. If he's at like 2 miles from home right here, then it stays at 2 miles from home this whole time. So he's at the park the whole time. Does that make sense? And then how about the part where he's coming back? All right, why don't you tell me those three answers. The first one was... Yep, I'm asking one person there, and Mr. Swim. Go ahead. Yep, this is ink. Increasing at an increasing. All right, and this part right there. Constant. Just the word constant. If you said constantly constant, that'd be kind of dumb. And then the last part. Go ahead. Yes, decreasing at a constant rate. All right, good. Next, I want you to sketch a little graph like that for me. Here's my little scenario, and you're going to be turning this sketch my way, so be prepared. Okay, on this one, I want you to sketch me one where he starts off going really fast, and then he slows down, eventually stops for a while. Go ahead, start the graph. I'm making a sketch just like I was doing. Starts out going really fast, and then he slows down and stops. Yes? Okay. Shut your iPad all the way off. Bring it back on. For me, what it took was logging out of Schoology and logging back in, and then it started working again. But your notes really aren't necessary. You can just follow along in Notability. That'd be fine too. Okay, wait. I haven't finished my story. Then he gets picked up by a giant golden eagle and flown back home at an incredible speed. Golden eagles are so big and strong that they have been known to pick up small children. Can you imagine the insane fear you'd have if your toddler's wandering around the backyard and then this giant eagle comes down and picks them up? Somebody did a fake of that on the internet the other day. On YouTube, but they are big enough to do that in real life. They are more common in Africa, where they pick up like small things like little lambs, things that are, like medium size-ish, but anyway. Okay, yes, that last part, first part goes like this. How many of you had that going the right way? Okay, good. And in the pause for a while is like right there. How long that is kind of an opinion call. But as he's going back at an incredible rate of speed, that would be very steep, and I would assume steady, although you could make the argument that the bird would start out going slower and then speed up as he gets his wings going, so maybe you could make the argument that it should go like that. Okay, so drawing a little picture for a situation. Those are problems you're going to practice on tonight's homework. Next kind, read a graph and interpret what's happening in the real world based on the graph. All right, so if I gave you this picture and said, what is he doing in the constant zone? What would you say? He stopped. What is he doing at the end of the graph? Is he going home or going, how about this? I'm going to give you a new graph. You tell me what's happening in these three parts of this graph. Okay, at the beginning, how would you describe that? Is that fast or slow? Going pretty fast. Okay, just to clarify, this is the same park problem. So this is distance from home. This is time. Okay, so at the beginning, he's going fast because it's steep. And then what's that wavy part? Going fast, slower and faster, slower and faster. That's true. But is he going closer to home and then farther from home and then closer to home? Yeah, okay. So it's like he got to the park area and then he kind of went back home and then he decided to go back to the park. And then he went back home a little bit and then he decided to go back to the park. And then he stayed at the park. And this flat part is where he stayed at the park the whole time. Okay, I'm going to add one last little piece. Chased by a wildebeest. Okay, whatever. He's going away from home, though. And what could you say about the speed at which he was going away from home? Fast and constant, too. And then the last part. Going back home, and what could you say about the way he's going back home? Adding an increasing rate. Very good. Okay, so if you wanted to make a story up, you could say that he ran away from the park or got picked up in a car and driven away from the park. And then he got picked up by the giant eagle again. Yeah, okay. All right, good enough. So we talked about these two things that are on the quiz. The next two are kind of the same, and they're about evaluating functions like f of x, and you drop in a number like f of 3. All right, I want to do a bunch of practice with you on a different screen for that. And then the last point is talking about ones on a graph. All right, let's start with the graph ones first. Here is a graph kind. Would you try to find this in the notes if you haven't already? Otherwise, if you want to just do it on paper, that's fine. G of 2. First thing you should ask yourself, did they tell you x or did they tell you y? That's where the x goes, right there. If they had told you the number over there, that's where the y goes. All right, so they told you x. X is 2. So you find x is 2, which is right here. And then you just say, follow it down. Oh, there it is. There's a point. What comma what is that point? 2 comma negative 2. Very good. And then which part did they already tell you? They already told you the x. So we don't really need this part. We just need that part. So it's negative 2. How many of you would have had that one right? Okay, good. Let's do g of negative 7. Don't tell me. Write it on your iPad and turn it my way when you've got it. G of negative 7. Can you change colors? Really hard to read that. All right, I'm pretty much everybody's getting this right, so I shouldn't waste too much time on it. G of negative 7, where's they told me x. X is negative 7. That's right. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's that point right there. What point is that? Negative 7 comma 0. They already told me the negative 7, so they must be looking for the 0. 0. Okay, on this next one, I think you guys would know you'd subtract 4 minus 4 and get 0 and then do g of 0, right? You know that? Okay, good. This part, you'd find this, you'd find that, and then what would you do to the two numbers? Subtract. This kind's different, though. For once, they did not tell me x. Look at number 5, please. What did they tell me? If they didn't tell me x, what did they tell me? They must have told me y. They're saying y is 4. Here's where y is 4. And you follow it over and you touch the graph and say, oh, what point's that? That's at negative 2 comma 4. I already knew the 4 part. They already told me that. So what did they want? They wanted the negative 2. Negative 2 is what x is. See how x when blah, blah, blah. They want to know what x is. So x is negative 2. I want to give you another one like that. See if it can answer this one. I am not going to tell you x. So I'm going to say f, or g. I guess we've been calling this g of x. G of x is negative 2. This time I'd like you to submit your answer on the instant response app that we created. It's on your home screen. G of x is -2. Okay, I'm looking for those answers to be coming in. Okay, so far 10 of you have answered. Quite a few more to come. Okay. A lot of you were really close, and a lot of you were exactly right. So here's the results. I have tons of 2s, but I have some -2s, I have some 0s, and I have some G of 2s, and there's a 4. Okay, so what should it have been? Did I tell you X or did I tell you Y? I told you Y. If I told you Y is -2, I follow it down to right here. And then that's that. And then you tell you what point that is. That's 2, -2. Which part did I already know? The -2. So therefore the answer is 2. Okay, it's the X at that spot. X is 2. I like, somebody typed in X equals 2. That's a good idea. All right. Now let's try the hardest kind of them all, number 6. Everybody please try to find number 6. X when G of x plus 2 equals -2. I would predict that only a third of you are going to get this right. Give it a shot. Type it in on the instant response app. And I'll pause for a second while you do that. All right, we're trying another one here on the on this function. I want to stick in h of 18 first, and then once I'm done with that, I'm going to subtract 7. Paused. All right, so the answer for that one comes out to be 1 is what the h of 18 is, and then I subtract off the 7, so the final answer is -6. Okay, now I'm going to do a couple of problems with you from your homework. I'm allowing you guys to skip some problems on there. I'm going to pause for just a second while I tell you which problems you can skip. All right, so on your homework, let's start with number 1. It says, make a sketch of a graph that fits the following description. Label your axes with whatever type of data you feel is appropriate. If I were you, I'd use distance and time. Those are the ones that kids usually do the best with, is distance and time. Now, increasing at an increasing rate. Well, that's increasing, but that's increasing at a constant rate, so you wouldn't want to do that. So you know what to do? Increasing and increasing goes like this. And then increasing at a constant. No, this would be constant. That would be wrong. Increasing at a constant. So we need to be going like that. Then what does just the word constant mean? Completely flat. I think you guys have gotten ahead of me, which is totally fine. I'm going to now skip down to a little further in and do one of these problems with you. If you want some help for free on number 3, I'm about to show you number 3. Some of number 3. F of 0. Did they give me X or Y? What's inside the little parentheses there, that's where X goes. So they gave you X. X is 0. If X is 0, I start here, and then I follow it up to where it would touch, which is right there. And that point right there would be negative or 0, 1. And they already told me the 0, so they must want the 1. All right, moving on to B, f of 5. F of 5, I'm going to put in x is 5. X is 5 right here. So I follow that up. That's the point I want. All right, good enough. You should probably be able to figure it out from there. And you know what? I think that's enough practice for you. I think you should be able to handle it from there. That's all I got. Okay.